Hi everybody, it's Colin again, joined by my hero John Lenhart. Hi John.
Hi.
Now we are at part 2 of your favourite job, John. Now, again, I still can't believe from the last one, you're literally now coming into your own personal administrator teacher. You're coming into your own, which means that's pretty much what flow means. You know, you're just doing what you're meant to be doing. You're fulfilling your purpose. So we talked through the last one. You managed to get to the point where you solved the problem at the car wash, and you know your dad was there and stuff. So you've managed to we're now moving on from that, because something must have kind of developed from that time.
Right. So they were trying to shut down, this opposition. Blue Coral and Red Lewis were trying to shut us down, and they couldn't do it. And I had elevated with the technical director type of stuff. I'd elevated the company, and I was being administrator teacher. That's the point here, is I was being myself. Now, in that project management, we talked about there's 4 steps to a project, and we talked about divergent, assimilate, convergent, execute. And I had said, entrepreneurs, and the owner of this company was an entrepreneur, they're divergers and they're executors. Got a bunch of ideas and they want to go. I'm an assimilator and a converger. So I'm in this company with this owner who's a perfect match for me. This guy's got a million ideas and he wants to go. So the ideas come by me, I assimilate it, I talk with him, help him converge, and we go. And we're just getting along great. And the company's doing great. So he wants to build a 70,000 square foot plant. He's got this place, this location. He wants to build this plant. He's got these architectural designs. And there was an engineering firm that said, we'll charge $250,000 if we'll help you go through all the engineering and deal with the architects and deal with the subcontractors and all this other stuff. And he said, oh, I don't need you. I have an engineer. John's an engineer.
John's a chemical engineer.
But we fit together so well.
Yeah.
So the thing that I enjoyed the most out of my entire career was building the 70,000 square foot plant. And I remember when it was over, I remember saying to people, 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and say, this is the best job I ever had.
Yeah.
On one end, I'm working with all the architects, and a lot of what I haven't talked about is I'm a Frank Lloyd Wright fan. Johnson Wax was in these Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. I used to every day walk through the tunnel to the administrative building to get a Mountain Dew and to walk around and look at the buildings of Symphony. The administrative buildings is gorgeous. I'd go up in the tower. It was closed off at the time. I'm a big architect fan. I've done a lot of architectural designs and things myself. And so now I'm working with these architects and I'm designing this building.
Oh, sorry, I'm not laughing at you, John. I'm laughing because you've went through all these different roles and now you're actually building. It is literally unbelievable, but I do believe it. So,
Yeah, I was designing this building and I used to take people on tours of this building and just love like a half-hour tour to show you just all the architecture in this building and all the Frank Lloyd Wright influence. This could be a whole separate video. I just loved it. I designed every room in that building except for one. So the architects did it. And then I kept changing stuff because the owner wanted it or because I wanted it. And when we changed something, the architects would change it and then change something else over the year. And it was a whole thing, but this was just a beautiful plant. This whole thing was set up amazing. And the issue was that we were going to have to shut down for 2 months. And the owner said he's seen too many companies shut down for 2 months. They open up and their customers are gone. So not only did I have to do this transition, I had to make sure that none of our suppliers left us. I had to make sure that they had money in the meantime. And we had these large tanks that we made our product in and they'd have to be moved. And while they're getting moved, we're not going to be able to make anything. It was an administration dream. I mean, just of all the stuff I've ever done, it was planning this thing. I was like going to war. And I had a guy working for me who was 20 years retired out of the Army. And we both treated this whole thing like we were planning a war and how we were going to get things from here to there. And it involved everything. It involved understanding the customers well enough to know what they're going to order, predicting. Remember, I told you I predicted sales. I predicted sales for the next 2 months, and we had all that product made so that we knew, we could fill out of our old place, even if we were down for 2 months. Then I set up everything in the new plant so that we can make our biggest seller. Like 50% of our volume was this one product. And I knew if we could make that, because I couldn't make enough product and store it of that. So we go over there, and once we did that, it's this whole transition. While we're doing that, we had like 23 or 24 subcontractors in this building. And for 8 weeks, my job was to walk around on concrete 6 days a week, 14 to 16 hours a day. All I did for 8 weeks was walk around this building, and the employees, a lot of guys in the plant were like, this is never going to work. They didn't like the owner, and they wanted to see this building fail. These people, this is their job, and they wanted to see it fail. Whenever something would happen, everybody go, this is it. We're never going to be able to solve this. Forget it. All I did all day is I'd come in early. The guy I was working with from the Army, he'd go to McDonald's when it opened, get 2 coffees. We'd pick a spot. He called it a TOC, a TOC, Tactical Operations Center. We'd set up a couple 55-gallon drums. We'd set up the big chart of where we're going to, of the plant. We'd set it up in the area we weren't going to be involved in anybody's way that day. We had everything charted out that day. We had our plan. And between him and I, we were handling everybody. And my day would start, these contractors come in, and I call it, if you've ever done project management, the way they illustrate it is to have a rectangular box. Colin, you have this task, then an arrow, then I have this task, or let's say somebody else, Ellie has this task and somebody else. There's white space in between the boxes. And what tends to happen in a project, no one owns the white space. You can finish your thing and you just leave it. They didn't know you finished it. I absorbed the white space. All I did was walk around all day and go, why aren't you doing anything? Well, the plumbing people haven't gotten me this. Not a problem. Walk over, hey, where is this thing? And as I'm doing that, people would walk up to me and go, well, there's this other issue. Get in line. So I'd be walking around the plant with 2 or 3 people walking behind me and just knocking out these problems one at a time, administrating all day long, and things would happen. The legs for this overhead conveyor are right in front of this door that opens up.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, it's over. We can't. Okay. How are we going to solve this? There was a moment, the way the plant was set up is all the empty drums come in, they go in a U, they get filled, and they go to storage. And down the middle is all the product making. At the very end, at the bottom of the U, there was a platform where a guy stood on to fill a drum. So he had a liquid filler, he had air to close, to hit a bung thing to seal it up. We had to have electrical, we had to have water, we had to have a drain there, we had to have a conveyor. There was like something like 9 subcontractors all met at this one point. And we sat there and negotiated in inches. How do we position this so it's not over the drain, so it's over here, so this? It was amazing. It was like 9 people all came together and needed this one spot. And I had to sit there and kind of figure out how can we do this so that everything could meet essentially without a contradiction.
Yeah.
Got it all done, opened the plant up, and that month we broke our record month in the history of the company by 76%.
What?
So we opened up just in time because there was this huge demand and we were taking off, and all of a sudden we had just this ridiculously big month. Like imagine your biggest month and then 76% more than that month out of nowhere, just had this humongous month. That's how we opened to a month like that. It handled everything. And, I'll tell you one quick story. The owner put this white coating on that made everything look clean. It was beautiful, but it needed to be cured at a certain temperature. And this is winter months. We were doing all this. And we had these big tanks, like 20-foot tanks that had to be placed in certain spots, but we needed to go to the floor. And to get the tanks in, we had a 16-foot door that didn't have the header on it. So once you put the header on it, you can't bring the tanks in. But if you don't put the header and close that door, you can't heat up the place to cure. So you had 3 issues. How do we get the tanks in? And how do we cure the floor? We have to have that header. Then we can't get the tanks in.
Yeah.
So everybody was just like, why didn't nobody think of this? And I picked a spot in the back of the plant, put the tanks on the square, put the header in, put everything in, coded everything but that square, let everything cure. Then they could cure that, we could rope it off, and we could do all our other stuff. So there's all these issues. So whenever I would walk around that plant, I could stand anywhere in that plant and point out 10 mistakes. The charts, they have these full maps, A to Z, so 26 of them, then double A to double N, 14. There's 40 outlines of this building, because one was all the electrical, one's all the plumbing, one's all the, there's no way. I think now they could do virtual and you could walk around, but there was no way. This is like a 40-dimensional problem brought into physical space, and all these things happened, and it was just holding everything together. And you could say it was a success, but I can tell you there was a lot of decisions made that just, it was a hurdle and not a driver. We just have to get through this thing just to keep this thing going forward. But it was, I was just administrating all day long. And I had people tell me, these subs go, you should do this for a living, John. You should absolutely do this for a living. But that's all I did all day, was coordinate all these subcontractors to get this building done on time, and then open right in time for this huge month, and everything just took off.
So did you find this was the formulation with the people that you were doing? Did you find this was the formulation with the people rather than the actual movement of the structures and everything else? It was more about understanding the people and connecting with them so that they connected with you.
I did some connecting with people, but it's funny you say that. I hadn't thought about it until you said it right now, because systems thinking, the system was the discipline. The plumbers do things a certain way. So I looked at all the plumbers like they were this person, all the electrical people like they were this person, all the conveyor people like they were this person. So that's how I approached everything. Yeah. So I actually looked at each subcontracting group like they were a person.
So because I was trying to work that out, the way you were talking there, and when you get 9 people around with 9 different jobs, it's a very difficult position to be able to, you've got to communicate with the group. You've also got to communicate on an individual level as well as being understood yourself. So that's a feat in itself, as well as trying to work out where the buildings are all going to be and stuff. So that, again, modeling everything is your thing. So it doesn't surprise me that you could do it well, but it's just another way of working of the kind of chemicals and the people that you were doing before. It's incredible.
Right. So I was so wired by doing this job, and I loved it so much. Now, when Christmas came and everything was going, my knees, my ankles, and my hips were just shot. Walking on concrete that amount of time just did a number on me. So I was resting up, but I was so wired. I had a hard time falling asleep because there was so many variables. And what I did to fall asleep was I started reading these really big books. So I had always wanted to read the Brothers Karamazov by I'm not gonna remember his name, but Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. There was all these books I'd always wanted to read, and I thought, if I read these books that are beyond me, my brain will get on that, and then I'll fall asleep. And it worked. And I ran through those books, And one of the books I read at that time was Atlas Shrugged.
Right. Okay.
So this is a big book, 1,100 pages. It's the 97 Library of Congress, or one of the libraries of Congress, said it was the second most influential book ever written. First was the Bible. I wanted to read this real big book, and I'm reading this book, and things are just clicking. This book organized everything I already knew. I was like, this book is amazing. I know everything in this book, but I never saw how it's connected. Ayn Rand did such a good job at connecting all these things that I now could explain it to people. And that's what I was reading at that time. Well, the owner, when all this happened and we had this huge successful month, the owner told me, he said, I've always wanted to fly planes, but I either never had enough money or never had enough time. He goes, I took a flying lesson the day before I started this company.
No way.
A flying lesson, I wanted to fly. Then I started this company and I didn't have enough money to keep flying. And then when I had enough money, I didn't have the time. And he goes, now I have the money, and with you, I have the time. So I'm going to go learn to fly planes. Like he was, divergent, execute. Like this guy was going to be up in a plane every day and he was going to get instrument rated and all this stuff like now, because he just loved it so much. Not that he was in a hurry so he can come back. It was just, he loved it that much. Yeah. And he let me run the company. And I ran the company according to Atlas Shrugged. He still would check in when we'd have meetings, and I'd be sitting there with this book, Atlas Shrugged, and I'd start quoting from it to handle a problem, and everybody would be settled. And there was one meeting, he walked all the way down, picked up the book, look, you could see he was looking at it like, how small is this print? Do I really want to read this or not? It's really small print, 1100 pages. He put it back and sat down. But it was like, I am running this company by reading this book, and he is off flying planes and checking in every once in a while. And now I am administrator, teacher. I am living my absolute best life.
This wasn't even a manager by this point. This was like the top dog of top dogs, really. And not only was it what you've built up with your knowledge, your experience and everything, you're now living your life. And you can't really get any more. I think the term they use is IKIGAI, isn't it? Was that close to your IKIGAI that you were then able to just live it and breathe it? And
that's probably when I was in IKIGAI. And to the point that I know the formulas. We had like 200 products. We had 200 formulations. Now I've built this plant where I can get chemicals in larger quantities. Part of what I did was to get chemicals in larger quantities. Part of what I did was bring my formulas in to be more consistent. So the deal with a chemical is if you buy a surfactant in a 55-gallon drum, they could end up charging you like $1.50. You buy it in a 400-pound tote, they could charge you like $1.10. You buy a tanker truck at a time, 4,000 gallons, they'll charge you 37 cents.
Right, okay.
So I'm in charge of the suppliers, and I can buy things in bigger quantity that lowered the cost of all the products. I'm in charge of the plant. I'm in charge of the salespeople now. Basically, they never hired another sales and marketing guy. I'm the sales and marketing vice president. I'm the acting president of the company. So I'm over sales and marketing. I'm over everything, and I coordinate everything to be the most efficient. And the profitability of that company, I mean, I drove the profitability of that company through the roof because I had control over everything. And I could do just in time because I could predict what was going to be bought. I made a product that was better than our current product at less price, and we ended up charging more for it.
That's insane. Did you have enough hours in the day? Like, so I know you said earlier on that you found that sometimes you had too much going on to sleep. Did you have enough hours in the day to be able to do it efficiently and still be healthy within yourself?
I absolutely thought I was at my healthiest. I'll tell a quick story here. I was coaching an 8th grade basketball team at a school, and one of the players, his dad was Reggie White. So I don't know if you know who Reggie White was. He was an American football player, defensive tackle, mountain of a man, legendary guy. And I was coaching his son in basketball. And the only 2 times that I got a technical foul were the only 2 games he came to. So this is a humongous guy that everybody in Green Bay respected. And I'll tell you the story of both of them. It's kind of funny. The first one, this kid's dribbling and he stops his dribble. He takes a step, which is legal. He has his hands on the ball and he falls forward, keeping his feet on the ground. He touches the ball to the ground and then he gets back up, and they called traveling. And I called the time. I knew the rules better than the refs. Your hand is part of the ball and the ball is not a foot. You can do that. You can put your hand down. You can put the ball down. And this ref who called it didn't like me. And I called a timeout and I called this ref over. Now you got to imagine we're in a private, Christian school. And there's basically two rows, like Reggie and Sarah White are sitting like right here behind me. I stand up and I call the ref over and I said, what was called there? He is traveling. I go, what happened? He goes, he touched the ball. I go, ball's part of the hand. You can touch your hand in the ground. It's just not another foot. That shouldn't have been traveling. And the other ref comes over and I said, excuse me, sir, I'm not talking to you. And I turned back to this guy. He started walking toward me and then walking toward me. And then he threw the ball aside, walked, and he whistled and teed me up. Technical foul. And I'm looking at that and he like kind of gets in my face and he says some things that are just not pleasant. And I'm just taking it. He turns to walk away and Sarah White, Reggie's wife, goes, well, I think that is disrespectful. She's from the South. I think that is disrespectful. And he's walking away and Reggie White had the softest, loudest voice I've ever heard in my life. He just goes, I agree. The ref is walking away, and when Reggie goes, I agree, the ref stopped, tried to take a step, and then start like Reggie White just disagreed with you, buddy. And it caused like everything in his body, like Reggie White, so I was like, this is great, man. Reggie backed me on the technical. That was awesome. But he goes, I agree. But he did it so soft, man. It filled that gym. Second time we were at a away game and they had this rule that your butt had to be on top of the bench. I was crouched down in front of the bench, leaning back against it. I get a technical foul. At the end of the game, Reggie White walks up to me. And he goes, why'd you get a technical foul? I go, there's a rule. Your butt has to be on the bench. My butt has to be touching the bench. My butt was touching the side, not the top. He goes, but I got to say to him, his son's name was Jeremy. I said, we only had like 8 guys at this game. I said, I don't know if you noticed, but I told the players, since we only have 8 guys, the minute you stop giving effort, I'm taking you out. I go, Jeremy played the whole game. Saying to his dad, right? He goes, okay. And he got all proud, I complimented on his son and he just like filled up, that a big guy filling up and he just, okay. Like he was so happy and he kind of walked away, strutted away. And I was like, yeah, that was great. So I was doing other stuff because I'm a generative guy. I was trying to help people. I wasn't telling people what to do. In managing the company, I'd walk around and help everybody be more themselves and help people do a better job. And so I didn't work a lot of hours when I was in charge of the company. But all I did was walk around and help everybody else do their job better. I was helping the guy in the lab be a better technical person. So yeah, I had plenty of time, which caused me to focus on the distributors. So this part of my job, I was on the road 3 weeks out of every month. So I wasn't even in the building 3 weeks out of every month. And we had 45 distributors, and these guys, one of them went to college. These are 45 guys who never went to college, and they're millionaires. They all own $1 million companies. I say they were a wrench. They started off as a guy who was fixing car wash equipment. And then Red tried to get people who were the distributors to sell his touch-free. They all told him, you're crazy. So Red got the wrenches out of those companies and said, hey, how'd you like to own a company and sell touch-free? They all said, sounds great. Red made these guys millionaires.
No way.
Yeah. Red Lewis made these guys millionaires. They were just guys, mechanics.
It's that as well.
What's that?
after trying to take out the smaller company at the start as well. It's as if he changed.
Well, no, he did this before. See that? So the timeline was before this cleaning systems, Red had this revolutionary way to clean a car, and he went to the distributors with the stuff that touched everything. They didn't want to rep him, so he went to their mechanics and said, "How'd you like to have your own company?" They said, "Great, but where am I going to get a chemical?" He turned to this little company in Green Bay, Cleaning Systems, right across the street from him, and said, "Hey, rep our stuff. I will get you a bunch of distributors." So the reason why this company was big was because of Red.
Yeah.
The company I had joined was big because he made him big, and now he was going, "I made you big. I'm gonna get rid of you." I stopped him from getting rid of him, but he was the one who made him big. Now those distributors stayed with us. They still liked Red. They still repped his equipment, but they were repping our chemical. And because of all the stuff I did. So I was now dealing with these guys they're mechanics, but they're millionaires. They've had no business background. They've had none of this stuff. And my goal was, they all thought the chemical was costing them money. And I did a spreadsheet and showed them that actually the equipment gave you a big chunk of money up front, but you had to service it over 5 years, which was an expense. And so really the equipment itself made you like a couple percent. The servicing of it lost you more than that percent.
Yeah.
The chemical got you like this much. Your margin was all the chemical. It wasn't the razor blade. The razor was the razor blade. Hewlett Packard didn't make money selling inkjets, printers. They made money selling ink. You're making money off of us, but you don't realize that. I need to educate you, but I get it. You never been to college. You haven't taken a business course. I created this business model for how they could grow their company. It was 31 steps. I called it a ladder, 31 steps. And I was educating all of these distributors. This is when I became an executive coach, and this is when I became a psychologist.
Yes.
So I'm traveling around the country meeting with these guys. And what normally would happen is I'd fly in to a big city on a Monday. I'd leave Monday morning from Green Bay, fly into a big city, and I'd have dinner with the distributor. And normally I'd have them have their wife, bring your wife out. Best way to have the distributor like you is you take them to a real nice restaurant. Their wife gets to go to a nice restaurant. No one ever asks their wife to go out because they're going to sit and drink and everything. Their wife now is talking in there. I love that cleaning system. I love that John Lenhart. Yeah. But what would happen is the distributor always had some issue with us. And the issue was always they misinterpreted something. And in their attempt to fix it, they made it worse. And then they told me I did something. But they're not going to tell me the mistake they made. So I'm having dinner with him and his wife. He's got to go to the bathroom. I turn to the wife. What's the real issue? The wife would go, "Yeah, they ended up adding water to this and da 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 da."
Yes.
So what's the real issue here? The wife knows it. I was fixing problems that the distributors created in trying to fix somebody else's problem. But they didn't want to take blame for that. And I used to say my biggest skill was negotiating blame. I'm okay with taking the blame if it keeps the distributor and it's not something illegal. You didn't have an MSDS sheet on that sheet. Well, that's against the law. I'm not going to say, "Yeah, you're right. We did. We know we did." Let's come up with something I could have done wrong that didn't break the law. And you can save face and you can tell everybody that's what we did wrong. And we're fine because we're selling you, $10 million of stuff or whatever. That's fine with me. But it's all psychology. And the thing is that when I would meet with those distributors the next 2 days I was there, I would executive coach them, and they needed it on business. But 75% of what I did was help them with their kids, their marriage, or their parents. I'm an executive coach. I have information. I'm a good executive. I can teach all this stuff. And you're not very good executive. You need this. And they did. And we formalized it. But what they really needed was counseling.
Yep.
So my job was traveling around the country and meeting with these owners, these distributors, and counseling them. I was a psychologist. I was meeting with people and helping them get their marriages back in line or better, help them with their kids, help them with their parents. All of these distributors had daddy issues. And I mean, look who's talking. But all of these distributors had daddy issues. They all had taken the leap to be something bigger because their dad never said, I'm proud of you, son. You're a great guy. All of them did. I used to always joke, with my son, I can either help him be successful by never saying I'm proud of him, or I could ruin his ability to be a millionaire someday by telling him I'm proud of him. I'm torn.
So at this point, you've now been a builder. You've now executive coached. You're now acting president of a company. You've stopped them from getting shut down and taken over, and you've done a full move. Okay, now at not one point did I believe that when you went to college or university that you were taught any of these things.
Right. I don't even know what you'd call this, because a big part of me being successful as this acting president was being a psychologist.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would fly in, I'd do that. The next day, in the morning, that's when I'd meet with the owner of this company, and it would be a full-on, I'd do some teaching about how to run his company and what to do, the product development model, the culture. How do you hire people? How do you train them? That's your soil. Do you have a job description written up? How do you do reviews? How do you fire somebody and not get in trouble? It was this project management, but I applied it to a company. I do that in the morning, but most of that morning was them coming in. We were in the conference room and it was full on counseling. It's full on issue with, the thing is they built this company, so they have relatives working in their company.
Yeah.
So how do you toggle between, I'm talking to you professionally, business, now I'm talking to you personally. And Atlas Shrugged, we talked about this. Atlas Shrugged deals with business. Your family and your marriage ought to be all love and no expectation. The government and the military ought to be all expectation, no love. What about business? Business is tough because it's half expectation to get stuff done, but it's got to be half love and getting uniqueness, and then it's the ability to toggle. And when you own a company, you're the family owner and you have relatives working for you, and then you go have Thanksgiving dinner. Are we at work? Are we home? What are we doing here? So there's a lot of issues, and that's what I did. I traveled around the country. I'd do that in the morning. Then I'd go with their lead salesman. I'd go meet all these customers, and they would represent me as the smartest guy in the world type of thing. I'd tell all the customers, you have the best salesperson out of all of our salesmen. You're lucky. You have the best salesman. Talk up the salesman, give the credit because he's the one there with the customer. That's why I'm there. I do the whole, there's been a murder here, and I'd figure out what was going on. Everybody was shocked that I could just knock these out. And then I'd help the customer have questions for my competition to knock them into the ground. We'd go out that night with one of their big customers, and we'd have to straddle a line between we're being professional, but we're going to have a good time. I'd show up at the yearly show and people walk up to the booth, John, we had this epic night in New Orleans, or we had this epic night, in Austin or whatever. And so it was all of these things where I'm being this administrator, I'm doing all these things and just having a ball. But it was counseling. The last morning I would have breakfast with the distributor, get on the plane, go to the next city. Wednesday night, do the same thing. I'd do 2 distributorships a week. I'd do that 3 weeks on. I'd come back, I didn't see my kids, didn't see my wife for 3 out of 4 weeks. But the thing I was doing was I was reading Atlas Shrugged, and I was reading the Bible, and I started reading the Bible as a story. And I started noticing Atlas Shrugged and the Bible are the same story. The reason why those are 1 and 2 is they are actually the same story. And so I started piecing things together, and I started writing things out. And like I said, we did that model for God, and I didn't stop modeling all those things out. Reading Atlas Shrugged allowed me to organize, what's faith? What's grace? What's love? What's truth? She had that all organized. I had definitions. She didn't have the definitions. I had definitions from the Bible. And then I noticed she acted on those definitions because she wrote that book unconsciously. And this is where in my spare time, I'm in, hotel rooms or on, planes, I'm reading both these books and I'm kind of cross-referencing it. And if you read, and we're going to talk about this later, if you read the Bible as a story, it's really different than the way most people read the Bible.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what you were just talking about kind of moving away and obviously not seeing your wife and kids for 3 weeks out of the month, that would have been quite difficult because you are a family man. You're very, very family orientated and you do enjoy teaching and helping them at any point you possibly can. But did you feel that because you were at your kind of ikigai point, you were at your administrator teacher, you didn't focus on what you were not having because you were gaining energy daily by doing what you're meant to be doing?
Two things. Number one is this is like 1999. I was making $200,000 a year.
Whoa.
21, 22 years ago. So I was making a lot of money.
Yeah.
My backwards thought, and I don't mean backwards like we've been talking, I mean wrong, is I love being around my kids so much. I'm Willy Wonka. I love my kids. My strategy was, I'm going to make a lot of money so I can retire like my dad retired at 43. I'm going to retire at 43, and then I can get to spend all of my time with my kids. Yeah. And I meet a lot of people who have that same strategy. And I say from experience, let me tell you something I wish someone had said to me. What's your goal? To be with my kids. Then why aren't you with your kids?
Yeah. Love that. Absolutely.
My strategy was to make a bunch of money so I could be with my kids instead of being with my kids.
Yeah.
So I got distracted by the enormous amount of money I was making, the IKIGAI and the energy, and they all felt like, well, there's all this money. They were, we owned a horse, we owned they were having a lot of stuff and a lot of, fun with all the stuff. And I was having fun with IKIGAI. I was in the job I was meant to be in, really. So that's kind of what happened there. When he got done, after a year flying his plane, the owner, he came back into the company and wanted to take back over. There was these leadership books written about Theory X and Theory Y. And Theory X is you motivate people from the outside, conscious brain. Theory Y is you motivate people from the inside. I was doing this in 1999. I ran that company showing up 1 week a month because I had helped everybody in their uniqueness. I was leading Theory Y. I have lived Theory Y to the nth degree. I ran a company and everybody was motivated from the inside, and I was doing what I wanted to do. When the owner came back in, he loved Theory X. And he started Theory Xing, and everybody came running to me going, oh, John, the owner's in. And I'm like, I got this. And I started explaining how to unconsciously confront him and how to argue in 3 questions and all the stuff that you and I've been over. I taught all these people this. He didn't like that. And I was fired.
No way. He fired you after all of that. He fired you over because his unconscious brain knew it was right. His conscious brain knew he was wrong, and he couldn't handle it because you offended him.
So I'll say this, we'll get into this, what happened after that in the next episode. But I will tell you this, there ends up being a lawsuit between him and I, trying to be for a non-compete. And when the deposition came, they had to ask him, why'd you fire him? And he sat silent. And luckily my lawyer said, it's been 4 minutes. Because when you look at his transcript, you can't notice it's been 4 minutes. You haven't answered. So otherwise you'd see his answer right away. We want to document. He didn't answer he sat for 4 minutes and wouldn't answer the question why he fired me. And he ended up saying, because John, and I did say this, John said, leaders bear pain, they don't inflict it. And we taught that in our leadership series.
Yeah.
So you go back to that, but I got fired because I said the legal reason why I got fired was I said to the owner of the company, leaders bear pain, they don't inflict it.
But you couldn't get a fair statement. And obviously that's just kicked his unconscious to touch, or his
He
unconscious.
could fire me for any reason in Wisconsin. He wasn't wrong. He didn't do anything illegal. This guy didn't do anything illegal. So and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. This is the best job I ever had.
That's insane. That's insane. I'm totally gobsmacked by that by that ending. Like and that was it, flat. So the next episode is how we're going to move on from your best job, I take it. What was next?
Yeah, because I didn't talk to headhunters the last 2 years of this job. I was loving my job so much for the last 2 years. I didn't talk to any headhunters. So I call up the headhunters. They're like, John, who? I couldn't get a headhunter to help me get a job at all. And no one's going to hire a guy who's been president of a company. And everybody feels threatened. Like, you're not going to hire me to work for you. And it's a line in Atlas Shrugged. Like, only a cheat and a fraud wouldn't hire the best possible talent because they're afraid they're going to beat them out. And I was starting to live Atlas Shrugged. Like, no one's going to hire this young guy who's been this high at this level.
That's insane, John. Absolutely insane. Listen, thank you so much for sharing that. That's given me a lot of food for thought as well. And your definition of leader has literally just settled and resonated with me completely, and how I work in comparison to the way that other people work as well. So thank you for that also. But you have an awesome, awesome day, and I will speak to you soon. Take it easy.
Bye.